Hey guys, Tech Bravo coming to you from the shed quarters again. Um, okay, so I wanted to do a short video about this. Has to do with the AC power going into these things, and specifically the ground lug on the back. I've seen a lot of discussion back and forth between electricians, master electricians, electrical engineers, novices alike. And I'm going to give you my take on it. I'm sure that I might get a little bit of feedback on it and plenty of discussion. But in theory and in practical use, what I'm about to say is in fact true. Okay. And first of all, this is educational purposes only. Use my information at your own risk. Yada, yada, yada. You can go to techbravo.net/terms-conditions if you want to see the fine print. Anywho, on standard United States 110 systems that are within code, we're going to pretend this is a main panel for a minute. It's not. It's a sub panel, so the neutral and ground bars are not. The buses are not bound. However, either way, whether it's a main panel or sub panel, the earth ground is the ground bar, the ground bus, and all of these on the 3-wire plugs, that round one is ground, and it references to earth ground. There is a 6-foot galvanized ground rod driven right outside the wall, and it goes up into the panel just like specified for codes. That third lug, the ground lug, and all of these outlets all reference earth ground. Now, I'm not going to get into the discussion about whether earth ground is to protect the equipment or protect the person. Ultimately, it is to keep you from getting shocked so that short or that runaway power or whatever you want to call it finds a path of lesser resistance than your body. So here's the deal. If you want to run a ground lug and run a ground wire through your wall and put it on a piece of pipe, I've seen people say they get a little 12-foot or 12-inch rather, little piece of copper pipe and run it in. It's not going to do anything anyway. It needs to be, 4, 5, 6 feet in the ground for it to be effective. Anyway, I'm going to reference that connection with it plugged in, power off, to this ground connection here, and I get about 4/10, half an ohm resistance. That's good. That works. I have effectively gotten an earth ground from my machine and the chassis and everywhere else to that where it's referenced, and there's zero potential between it and earth ground, or very little. So I've basically done the same thing as running that extra little wire. Now, the wire in this thing's probably 18 gauge. If you got a 15 amp circuit here, you got 14 AWG Romex. If it's a 20 amp, you got 12. And I believe that solid copper going from the ground bar down to the rod is what, 4? I believe it's 4 gauge. If you want to take a little piece of this stuff and run it from that lug, drill a hole through your wall, sit it out there on a piece of pipe and drive it in the ground 1.5 feet, be my guest, useless. The most important thing you can do to make these safe is to go in here on this side of that lug, take all the connections loose, meter them out, make sure you have no high resistance connections, make sure that they're terminated properly, check the crimps, make sure the wire won't pull out of the termination, out of the wire terminal, and put it all back together, and make sure that you have good, decent mechanical and electrical connections there at that junction where all of that ground stuff comes. And then reference it and meter a few places on your chassis to make sure that you have continuity to ground. If you do, that means effectively your machine is grounded. Now, again, I'm sure I'm going to get some blowback for this, but again, in theory and practical use, what I'm saying is in fact correct. So, just thought I would cover that. If you want, like I said, if you want to run a wire, go for it. But that's my take on it. Have a good evening from the shed quarters. Tech Bravo out.